The Most Painful Cave Deaths Ever, Part 2. Deep beneath the earth, where light barely reaches and silence is deafening, lie some of the most treacherous places on the planet, caves. These underground labyrinths have fascinated explorers for centuries, yet they remain some of the most dangerous places a human can enter. In our first video, we covered some of the most horrifying cave deaths in history, but there are many more stories. Stories of people who entered these dark voids and never returned. Some became trapped, others succumbed to the elements, and a few faced the terror of knowing their fate was sealed with no escape. This is the second part of the most painful cave deaths ever. Brace yourself for more horrifying tales from the depths of the earth. The frozen tomb of Booming Ice Chasm. In the Canadian Rockies, hidden beneath layers of ice, lies the Booming Ice Chasm. This cave is unique, not only because of its beauty, but because it remains frozen year-round. Unlike other caves filled with mud and rock, this one is a smooth, glacial slide leading deep underground. For years, only the bravest and most experienced explorers have dared to enter. One such explorer, whose name remains undisclosed, descended into the icy depths in 2012. He was alone, equipped with a helmet, ice axes, and ropes. His goal was to explore deeper than anyone had before, but he made a fatal miscalculation. As he rappelled down one of the vertical shafts, his anchor came loose. The ice beneath his feet was so slick that even his spiked boots failed to grip. Within seconds, he was plummeting down a freezing chute, hitting ice walls on the way. His body finally stopped in a narrow crevice, where the temperature was well below freezing. In complete darkness, he tried to call for help, but there was no one to hear him. His fingers began to numb, then his limbs. Hypothermia set in quickly. When rescue teams finally found him 3 weeks later, his body was frozen solid, perfectly preserved, his face still showing the fear he felt in his final moments. Trapped in a rising tomb of water. Nutty Putty Cave. Nutty Putty Cave in Utah is infamous for its tight passages and deadly squeezes. Many have tested their limits here, but some never made it out. One such case involved John, a 26-year-old explorer who had experience with cave diving, but was unfamiliar with Nutty Putty's infamous crawl spaces. He had heard stories of others getting stuck, but was confident in his ability to navigate the cave. He entered with a group of friends, determined to push himself to the limit. As he wriggled through a particularly narrow passage, he made a mistake. He took a wrong turn and found himself in an uncharted tunnel. It was barely big enough to fit his body. He tried to back up, but his arms were pinned at his sides. The more he struggled, the deeper he wedged himself into the rock. Then the real horror began. Water began to seep in from above. At first, just small trickles, but within minutes it was pooling around his chest. His friends tried to pull him out, but the tunnel was too tight. They called for rescue teams, but by the time help arrived, the water level had risen past his face. His last breaths were spent gasping in the darkness, completely unable to move. When divers finally reached him, it was too late. The only thing left was to recover the body, but the cave had other plans. Nutty Putty was sealed off permanently, with his remains still inside, a tomb for eternity. The deadly collapse of an abandoned mine. Not all caves are natural. Some are man-made tunnels, old mines long forgotten, until thrill seekers decide to explore them. In 1998, a group of young adventurers ventured into an abandoned silver mine in the western United States. It had been abandoned for decades, but rumors said it contained hidden passageways and untouched chambers. The group of 4 descended into the depths, armed with flashlights and backpacks filled with supplies. For hours, they navigated the tunnels, marveling at the eerie silence and rusted equipment left behind. But as they pushed deeper, the structure began to betray them. The ground trembled. Then, without warning, the ceiling gave way. Tons of rock came crashing down, blocking their only exit. One of the 4 managed to escape by sheer luck, running back the way they came before the rest of the mine collapsed. The other 3 weren't as lucky. Trapped beneath tons of rubble, their screams were muffled by the weight of the stone. Rescuers spent days trying to dig them out, but the deeper they went, the more unstable the mine became. In the end, it was too dangerous to continue. The 3 explorers remained inside, buried forever beneath the mine that had claimed their lives. The man who fell into a bottomless pit Mexico's Cave of Swallows. Cave divers often risk their lives to explore the unknown, and sometimes the unknown swallows them whole. In Mexico, the Cave of Swallows is one of the deepest known pits on Earth. It drops over 1,200 feet straight down, more than the height of the Empire State Building. Adventurers often rappel into its depths, using special gear to control their descent. But not everyone makes it back up. In 2007, an experienced caver named Rodrigo attempted to base jump into the pit. Many had done it before, gliding safely with parachutes. But Rodrigo's jump went wrong. His parachute failed to deploy properly, and instead of slowing his fall, he plummeted like a rock, gaining speed. His screams echoed through the cavern as he tried desperately to correct his descent, but nothing worked. Within seconds, he slammed into the rocky floor at full velocity. When rescuers reached him, the scene was gruesome. His body had been crushed by the impact, almost unrecognizable. The Cave of Swallows had claimed another victim, proving once again that even the most experienced thrill-seekers are never truly safe. The acid pit. The deadly waters of Grota de Fe. Some caves hold more than just rock and darkness. They contain substances that can kill in ways far worse than suffocation or falling. One such cave is the Grota de Fe in France, an eerie cavern with a deep pool of water that seems calm until you realize what it truly is. In 2014, two explorers, Mark and Antoine, ventured into this cave to document its unusual ecosystem. They had heard rumors about the strange properties of its underground lake, stories of animals found dead along its shores, and of past explorers who felt dizzy when standing too close. Ignoring the warnings, Mark decided to take a closer look. He bent down by the water's edge and, to test its depth, dipped his hand inside. Within seconds, he recoiled. His skin was burning. The water was acidic, filled with dissolved carbon dioxide that had built up over centuries. It wasn't just a pool, it was a natural acid pit. Before he could warn Antoine, a sudden shift in air pressure sent a wave of carbon dioxide gas rising from the lake. It was invisible, but deadly. The two men gasped, but with each breath, they inhaled poison. Their bodies reacted instantly. Dizziness, weakness, and finally unconsciousness. By the time rescuers arrived, both men were lying near the pool, their skin corroded, their lungs filled with toxic gas. The cave had claimed them in a way no one expected, not by trapping or crushing, but by slow, silent suffocation. Today, the Grota de Fe remains one of the most dangerous caves in France, and few dare to enter its depths. The cave that ate a town, the deadly collapse of Neka. Mind, not all cave deaths happen deep underground. Sometimes an entire town suffers when the earth beneath them gives way. The Neka mine in Mexico is famous for its breathtaking crystal cave, home to some of the largest natural crystals in the world. But beneath its beauty lies a history of disaster. In the early 1900s, Neka was an active mine, with workers drilling deep beneath the surface. They extracted lead and silver, unaware of the unstable rock formations above them. Over time, as tunnels were dug deeper and deeper, the pressure built up. Cracks formed in the surrounding walls, but instead of stopping operations, miners kept drilling. Then in 1911, the inevitable happened. A massive cave-in occurred, swallowing dozens of workers. The tunnels collapsed so suddenly that some men never even had time to scream. The ground above them cracked, and entire sections of the mine were sealed off. Those trapped inside had no chance. Some were crushed instantly, while others were buried alive, with no way to escape. The town above the mine suffered as well. Buildings cracked, streets sank, and some homes vanished into the earth. After the disaster, mining was temporarily halted, but eventually operations resumed. In the years that followed, more collapses occurred, each one burying more workers, until finally the mine was deemed too dangerous to continue. Today, the crystal cave remains, but it is completely off limits. The beauty of its massive crystals hides a deadly secret. Beneath them, the bones of lost miners still lie, buried forever in the depths of the earth. Each of these stories is a chilling reminder of how unforgiving caves can be. Whether through freezing temperatures, collapsing tunnels, toxic gases, or rising water, these underground worlds do not forgive mistakes. Some caves are natural death traps, while others become dangerous because of human greed and recklessness. But in the end, the result is always the same. Those who enter may never come out. And even after 2 videos, there are still more stories to tell. More tragedies, more lost explorers, more terrifying deaths in the depths of the earth. Would you dare to explore these places? Or is it better to leave the darkness alone?